Prisons never change. They're designed to prevent change, to maintain order and suppress freedom. But what happened at this Brisbane jail was different. These men were part of a not-so-quiet revolution in an era when the state of Queensland was mired in conservatism, institutional corruption and strong-arm law and order. The crim, the screw, the minister, the punk rocker and the caretaker. Each can tell a different side of 5 days in 1988 that would rock Australian prison history. Written on the walls inside Boggo Road Jail is the history of the prisoners that languished inside them. But it was the history written 25 years ago on the rooftop above that would change the Australian prison system forever.
Boggo Road Jail was, in the 20th century, the most notorious prison in Australia. Prisoners serving life and for crimes like armed robbery, violence, prostitutes, drunks, through to the most serious offences such as murder, incest, rape. This is where they called home.
The solitary confinement cell, called the Black Hole, was called barbaric and inhuman by the Human Rights Commission and was still used up until 1988.
And it was filthy. I mean, there were vermin and lice, and men were literally pooing into cans and peeing in cans, sharing showers, razor blades, cold sores and tinea in the 1980s. I mean, this was draconian. I mean, even the average member of the public understood that this was inhumane to keep men locked up in this.
Mark Itchy Flule served 17 years on the inside and was in Boggo Road for 2 manslaughters, an armed robbery and various drugs charges.
My first impression of Boggo Road was, I'm in the shit fight here. Like, I think I was only there 2 days before the first major bashing I seen. If they come in to bash me, I'd be there, yeah, let's go. You know what I mean? Because there was nothing else you could do. We're the bashing, get a couple on them, you know what I mean? The more screws there are, the luckier you'll be. Because if there's 5 screws, they'll get in each other's road and you can do as much damage as you possibly can before they kick your guts in. It was smelly, no running water, and then having to sit on the shit tub. It took me a couple of days to have a shit in the shit tub. Yeah, the shit tubs were bad, eh? Because the cockroaches used to get in there. The cockroaches here were notorious.
He says that apart from the rank conditions, sexual abuse was rife in 2 jail.
I didn't get into boys. They always used to say, hey, you'll get a taste for it and before you know it, you'll be getting it. So, and that used to happen all the time. All of these hocks are mad rooters. Then you'd start talking to the boys. You say, where you living that yet? And they'd look at you and go, what? He's me, I'm him. And that's how it used to be. You know what I mean? I'd rather my mattress. And that one's been got at. How? Look. So you'd cut a slit like that big and open up the mattress that way. And then you'd, well, underneath that bit there, and then you'd put your plastic bag in there, your pillow here, and then you hump the guts out of it. If you got a bloke into it, it was funny because you could actually calm them down. See, most of us are nutters. You come to jail, you've got to be a bit loose. You're running around killing people, you're selling drugs. To do a crime, think about it yourself, you know what I mean? You've got to look at that and say, well, I'm a dickhead.
But does that make the treatment that you boys received in this prison right?
No, that's right.
Just remember, we have to come in here as well. I don't like to talk about it because I've got to live it, you know. Even to this day, I very rarely talk about it. I was only a kid from the country, you know, I was 20 when I started here. It's just way too young. Like, you're told to do something, even if you didn't agree with it, you know, you had to do it. I treated myself as a foreman in a human factory. They're in blue and you're in brown, and my job is that they don't go over that wall there. If you either root another crim or you bash an officer, you're not human. So you're going up in the cages, and the cages up there in Sealing were individual cages. I mean, yeah, they're like monkeys in there. Some of them deserve it, you know. You think, well, we have to protect them away from other crims, you know. As I say, you're over here in 2 jail and this is where you're going to go. You know, you really hit the bottom of the prison system.
After 13 years as a screw here, John resigned during what would be the last riot in Boggo Road.
I'd had enough, Andy. I just had enough, you know. I've got daughters, and as I said, the last riot here, they threatened, we know where your girls go to school, you know. That tipped me.
But not before he played a role in what would prove to be explosive. Tensions in this antiquated and outdated facility were already high all throughout the 1980s. There was fires and riots and unrest, but it was the shooting of a prisoner named Spider in February 1988 in this door here that would, as they say in prison, cause the prisoners to go off and trigger everything that happened next.
9:35 on a Saturday morning, the 13th of Feb 88.
It started because they shot us. Everybody was waiting for us to go off again. All they wanted was someone to lead the charge.
And my mate that was on the gate said, "Quick, John, quick, 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 quick. The 2 Gaels going off, quick." And my mate shot a bloke here, Spider, I think it might have been.
If they hadn't shot Spider, as soon as the boys went off in the mess, they hit the armoury and come out shooting.
He let me in the armoury. I grabbed all these shotguns and rifles and as many as I could try and carry in one arm. And I put a pistol in my pocket, and I come running over and I come in between gates over here, and holy hell, all you could hear is the noise in here, the noise.
The riots in Boggo were some of the last old school riots that the country has ever seen.
A riot in a prison is like a drug. It's better than any drug because you know there's a high chance this is going to be the last thing you ever do. We all thought we were dead anyway. No one ever thought they were going to get out. The greatest form of freedom you'll ever get.
We're cornered, so I only had the pistol and kept them at bay. We have to take control. We've got to work out what's going on because it's just happening that fast. And these boys said, "John, whatever you do, don't get taken hostage because you're in trouble."
We just thought they were going to kill us. And the reason why the hunger strike was, you, if I'm going to die, I'll do it myself. You aren't going to do it.
This was just the final straw, and by the hundreds they refused to take nourishment.
This is the cell where I started the hunger strike. This is where I was living when they shot Spider through the door. I didn't eat for 12 days. You hallucinate. Not really hallucinate, but well, you start to trip.
So did you know at the time that the hunger strike that you started would lead to the closure of this jail?
No. I thought it was going to be the closure of my life. 9 or 10 days through the hunger strike that they moved me from this cell, because that was the day they went on the roof.
One by one, scaling the front of F-Wing, 5 men somehow managed to climb onto the roof that overlooks Brisbane City, beginning a tense standoff that polarised the community below.
They'd scaled the walls, complete with bed sheets, paint, brushes and shirts proclaiming their message. The protest came on the 12th day of a hunger strike by a small number of inmates, agitating for a speed-up in state government plans for an inquiry into the state's overcrowded and understaffed jail system. A note was thrown to supporters outside. It was from 7 of the hunger strikers.
Now, we are prepared to die rather than be released only to return.
And then the screws started coming out. We're going to hose those dogs off the roof. If anything had happened to those guys on the roof, I'm not sure. Because we had crossbows. We had to get the public to try and stop these buggers from shooting us.
Today the demonstrators were identified as Noel Cash, Neville Cooper, Robert Speedy, Gary Gray and Kerry Darby. Their sentences range from 6 to 12 years for crimes such as the rape of an 84-year-old woman, assault...
Most people were not particularly sympathetic to the plight of prisoners in number 2 division of Boggo Jail. Prisoners inside the jail threw tennis balls with water and small amounts of food inside them. Almost straight away, news crews were filming, not only to the people of Queensland, but right across Australia.
We want an independent inquiry where the public and the media can attend. It's a hurtful, hateful place, full of hate.
As the days went on, people gathered across the street on Annerley Road, and it numbered into the many hundreds. And I think they gradually began to win something of an audience.
The prisoners have maintained their protest despite sweltering daytime conditions and drenching overnight rain. However, their spirit has not been dampened. A determined team of supporters has seen to that. Last night, the men were entertained by a rock concert just across the road.
It would have been about 3 or 4 days into it. And it was rain and sort of energy was a bit waning and stuff. And if memory serves me correctly, and it may not, I got home and I thought, why don't we go and play outside? The protesters were out in the front of the footpath opposite Boggo Road. All the focus was over there. So we snuck up really quietly, because it was all over, just really quietly set up everything, and then all of a sudden just let it rip. From memory, somebody actually grabbed a mic and went, "This is for you blokes up there and everybody in the wing."
A local rock band last night lent their support.
Bearing in mind, this is Queensland under the Bjelke-Petersen era, which was just, if you didn't live in Queensland at that time, it's really hard to try and explain the reality of it.
A local rock band last night lent their support. Corrective service.
We got away with 3 songs before they shut us down, and I remember vividly at the end of the first song, it's like you could hear the whole division inside going, "Oh."
A quick dance before bedding down saw out the 3rd day.
It was embarrassing. It made Queensland seem backward, put the government in a very difficult position. By the 4th day, this pressure was building up. Minister Cooper had come out and said, you know, they can stay up there till Christmas for all I care.
And how long will you stay up there? Well, the prisons minister said we can stay up here on Christmas if we want it, but we just might do that.
They got up there and they can come down. It's entirely in their hands.
Then Corrections Minister Russell Cooper would go on to be Premier of Queensland.
They were like wild animals in there. I knew it was volatile. It was a lot of pressure. I did want it to end, but I wasn't going to be seen to be weak enough to pander to them. This mess we've got, it's not just Boggo Road, I said it's everywhere. I'd been right through the system. I knew this had to be razed to the ground.
On the 5th day, prisoners got what they wanted when the minister announced an inquiry into the entire prison system. The prisoners agreed to come down from the roof. It was a watershed moment, resulting in the Kennedy Review recommending the further privatisation of the prison sector.
The most striking change that the report recommended was a movement away from punishment to correction.
The whole system's going to take a change. Like I say, this is the end of the line.
After the 88 riot, they opened up prisons where we had everything. Good food, freedom within the prison, good jobs, good wages, you name it, we had it.
But was it the case that reforms were already underway? Or were those 5 men on the rooftop responsible for such change?
It may have coincided, and I don't mind if it coincided one little bit. I would hate to think that it was them who finally got that ball rolling.
Regardless, it didn't go down well with the Screws. They walked off the job, their strike forcing the police rights squad to go in and take back control.
Without pointing fingers, this place, Boggo Road, and all that goes with it was rotten, like a cancer. And so people were going to suffer, prison officers, prisoners, and so on.
But most significantly, Boggo Road 2 Jail was shut down in 1989, with the rest of the prison following shortly after. 3 of the 5 men who staged the 1988 Boggo Road rooftop protest have since died. Noel John Cash is still serving time here in Queensland's largest correction centre, privatised in the wake of the protest that he participated in. He's one of the last men alive that was on the roof in those days, and the Queensland Department of Justice declined our request to interview him. These 2 men, who were on different sides of history's fence that day Spider was shot, haven't set eyes on each other for 25 years.
There's a very fine line between those people who are outside and those people who are inside. Very fine line, and nearly all of them come out at some stage.
I might be a screw, you might be a cream, that's okay. Yeah, but you've got to remember, they're just like you and I. You know, I could have been in here.
That's why I remember his head. It's not as if I'd be inviting him home. Prisons do not work to stop people. How can you rehabilitate anyone by locking them up?
Anybody with a conscience would go, no, this is just wrong, it's fundamentally flawed.
Yeah, he might have left here, but I stayed.
The rooftop protests came at a moment in our state's history when it was being revealed to the public of Queensland how rotten things really were. And these men climbing up onto the roof and then saying, look, things stink in the prison service as well and we're being treated poorly. It resonated with people.